name is Nick Post. I'm a designer in the Manage Optimize team. I paused there because I always get confused because we had a name change the other a couple months ago. So Nick Post, Optimize team. And today I want to talk about making maps and my process for making maps and all that good stuff. So before I get started, this is a public service announcement. I did not design any of these slides. Jackie said, just to make sure that everyone knew that I didn't have the time to create these, nor do I have the capability. So it's stuff that I've stolen off the internet and I'm relaying to you rather than actually creating for the specific purpose that you showcase. So making maps. In my previous job, we had some design thinking material, and one of the core principles of this design thinking material was the principle of dimension and diagram. And I want to talk a little bit about the principle of dimension and diagram and how I use it in my work every day, and sort of talk about a little bit how I've applied it in some planning sessions and some of the outcomes that have come about from actually using this work and how it's impacted my team and me. But first, I'm going to go into this and so talk about dimension and diagram for a bit. So in school, we're often taught to structure our work in a very particular way. It's very easy to structure your work, not sort of jig it about and basically go down a very linear path with the way that you think about a particular problem. But there's actually a lot of room and opportunity for using visualization and design skills to think about problems in unique ways. So a lot of people tend to think that strategy is the domain of product managers. But I think that designers have a big opportunity to use or help out with strategy, with product strategy, because of our visual skills and the way that we think about problems. And this principle is sort of one of the reasons why I think that we can really help out with strategy. And I'll give you an example. So in my previous job, we were working with a pharmaceutical company, and they're saying, look, we want to help out and create a new sort of solution for cold care. So when we are going through the process of understanding the problem space and stuff, a lot of the general questions came up around what's the problem space look like, who's it for, what constraints have we got around the solution. And what we did is we were actually able to take some of the attributes that came from these questions and plot them against each other in particular ways. And by plotting them against each other in particular ways, we came up with this diagram. And this diagram on the x-axis is showing you the various stages of your cold journey. So what it's like to go through a cold. So something different, you sort of feel like there's a little scratch in your throat. Getting a cold, you know, oh yeah, I'm definitely coming down with something. What should I be doing now? Having a cold is, yeah, I've got the cold. I'm sort of on the couch, I'm in a blanket or whatever. And then getting over a cold is the final one. And then there's ways that you can go about treating it. So there's solutions for it. So you can mask stuff, you can change the environment that you're in, you can flush stuff, you can comfort. And by creating this diagram, we're able to see that most of the stuff out there currently in the market focuses on this one little bitty segment of types of products that you can work with. And there's all these gaps that we could actually use to address the cold in whatever way that we wanted. So there's a lot of opportunity space because of this. And only through the process of dimension and diagramming were we able to identify these opportunity spaces and sort of say, this is the path that we want to go down. And this is, I think, one of the benefits of dimension and diagram. So dimension and diagram as a principle is identifying the important aspects of a problem and then making this information visual in order to find relationships and solutions to those things. So we do this a lot already. I'm not going to go into that section. And there's a number of things that you can do to sort of get this information. So a lot of the dimensions and things that we talk about basically come from good solid user research. So after you've done your user research, you'll have a bunch of artifacts and things describing what a particular user experience is like. And from there, you're able to plot out just a number of different data points of what's actually happening within that experience. And off the back of this, you can then start to cluster these data points together in particular themes to understand what is actually going on and how can we make more sense of it. And from this, you can use these data points and you can use these themes and you can plot them together in unique ways. Not all these diagrams are going to be useful, but you can start to find interesting relationships off the back of it. So some of the key dimensions that typically come out of this user research are things like triggers, so things that happen that spark a particular action, pain points, the values that you're bringing to a user, activities, use cases, modes. There's lots of different things that you can consider as a dimension that's useful. So activities like user journey mapping is sort of a manifestation of this dimension and diagram principle. And there's different simple ways that you can start to visualize this stuff. So how did I apply this to my team? There's a lot of stuff that we did, but we use this as a planning activity. And what we did after doing some research and doing some market research is we were able to isolate the 4 key jobs to be done. So only pay attention to these right now. You're able to find the 4 key jobs to be done, which are across the top here on the x-axis. And we were able to sort of talk about the different levels of abstraction or hierarchy that exist within value stream, which is the category in which I'm working on. And by plotting these 2 different dimensions together of levels of abstraction for the value stream and jobs to be done, we're able to sort of figure out where are we currently serving users with regards to the stuff that we've created here, and where do we want to go? And we'll use this as a map to sort of plot the path for where are the sort of sequence of features that we want to put within our roadmap. I could go into the whole exercise, but basically we use this as a nice canvas to frame the conversations that we had within some synchronous meetings and also some asynchronous collaboration as well. And out the back of this exercise, this planning exercise, I've created a number of different diagrams. I'm not going to go into each and every one of them, but we are able to use this dimension and diagram principle to sort of disambiguate a number of the things that tend to crop up when talking about value stream. So value stream is obviously can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And one of the challenges that we had before this exercise was that we typically needed to spend 10 to 15 minutes when speaking with other stage groups, with users or customers, around what value stream is, as well as what are the different aspects or ways that you can consider value stream. So by creating this diagram and thinking about the different dimensions that were there, we're able to sort of shortcut the process of trying to onboard people into the way that we talk about value stream and think about value stream, as well as identify how they think about value stream as well. So I hope that wasn't too abstract. I left out a whole heap of stuff with regards to the methodology and the process for how I actually came up with the stuff here. So if people are interested in that, please ask away with regards to anything like that, or I could follow up with a blog post or whatever to clear up some gaps. I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Looks like Austin, you have the first question.
Thanks, Nick. I was curious to know if you felt like the dimension and diagrammed approach is like another way of saying like diverging and converging, or like the double diamond process, or if you see them as totally separate types of ways of working.
So this was, I'm not going to go into Salesforce's design thinking methodology too much, but
okay.
The dimension and diagram is like a principle. So we used to think about principles as being something underneath like the process level, basically a particular type of mindset that you employ when doing creative problem solving. So what a lot of other design thinking methodologies did is tended to display or represent design thinking as a linear process, which isn't typically how the creative problem solving approach works. So the diverging and converging, the double diamond stuff, is a good representation for like divergent thinking, convergent thinking, and also showing and separating out the problem space and solution space. But this is like, basically think of it as a hat that you use in the creative problem solving space to like figure out or work out some thing that may crop up in the I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Think of it like a mindset.
Yeah, like it's another tool in your tool belt. It's another way to think about approaching problems.
Yes, there you go. You were able to say it better than me.
No way. Thanks for clarifying though. Tori, you had a question you wanted to vocalize?
Yeah, Nick, you mentioned that this exercise helped us kind of solidify how we think about value stream.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in learning just how we are thinking about value stream and what was the outcome of that.
Very good question. So up until this point, we've basically had our feature for value stream focused predominantly on mapping out what your value stream is. So saying, these are the different stages that fit within my value stream, and this is how long each one of the stages is taking. That has some level of value, but there's then some things that you can do once you've mapped out the stages that give people a little bit more insight around their value stream. One way is to use the value stream to help with delivery and implementation. So that is like sort of the thing that you do with boards and how you collaborate around all that sort of stuff. There's another way to think about value stream in terms of optimizing your workflows and your processes. So reflecting on how your value stream is working currently and seeing how you can make any adjustments to that. And then finally, thinking about value stream in terms of how much value is it delivering? So actually connecting it to some of the things like understanding how much it costs to implement a certain feature and all that sort of stuff. So by identifying the different jobs to be done after this exercise and plotting them at the different levels of value stream abstraction, we are able to say that we want to focus specifically right now on the optimize side of value stream. So that's reflecting on your workflows and reflecting on how you can actually optimize them to be a little bit more effective and reduce the time within your value stream, and leave the delivery side and leave the evaluation side for a little bit later. So we were able to prioritize what our focus was and what we wanted to focus on in the near term.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool.
All questions? Nope. Becca, you're writing. You want to just verbalize now?
Yeah, and then I'll write it down. Do you see any opportunities for us to use any kind of like journey mapping or diagrams where we're not currently, like to, help with, pajamas life cycle, component life cycle, or is there anything that I'm wondering if we can help build empathy even in these showcases by, starting with a journey map because we all touch on different personas, or what opportunities do you see? Because I think this is really interesting. I'm just trying to think about in what ways we can apply it.
Very good question. Something that strikes dear to my heart as well. So yeah, personas, journey maps, they're all really useful for providing additional context around how GitLab works and how it should work and all that sort of stuff. I think one of the key opportunities that we have within GitLab is actually the use of objects and mapping out our conceptual model. So if you think about the way that we structure ourselves at GitLab currently, we are structured based on stage groups, and each stage group has a particular category. And categories are a way for us to represent the types of features that we're actually presenting to the market. So it's a way for analysts and people to sort of understand what is the stuff that we're selling to you and how are we perceived within the market. So something that really tends to align more with like our buyer personas. So if you think about how a user actually perceives GitLab as a product, like an average developer, when they're actually using GitLab, they don't tend to think about GitLab in terms of categories. They don't say, oh, I'm currently working on some source code management. I'm currently working on issue management or value stream. They typically think, I'm currently in an MR. I've got a commit. I'm going to push that commit to an MR. And I'm going to then say in this issue that I've finished this MR or whatever is going on. So users tend to think about GitLab in terms of objects. So when we're able to create and map out how the object interactions should work, there's this level of experience that we'll be able to create underneath this category segmentation that we already have that will fill in some of the gaps of where our experience is. So if you think about, our teams tend to optimize towards categories, and then hopefully pajamas and some other design system stuff will able to optimize towards objects and some of those sort of broader experiential concepts that we hope to get from GitLab. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm going to put some time on the calendar with you if it's all right, because I've started a couple maps and then I kind of get lost. I feel like I start to try to show too much in one. So I'm curious in learning more about, the scope of one diagram, because sometimes I'm trying to show, different UI, like, oh, you're taking from this page to this page, in addition to kind of the emotion that the customer is, or the user is going through, in addition to just a layer of things. And so rather than like an XY, it turns into an XYZQ. I feel like there's so many axes going on at once. So maybe we can meet and even record that session for anybody else who may struggle with scope in these diagrams.
Sure. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. I really enjoy it. And like a really quick tip is with these maps is like start at the end. Think about who's it for and what's it for. And that helps to prioritize and strip down the dimensions that you actually include in the maps. I think designers have like this tendency to want to like create the one ultimate map to solve it all, but really a series and a library of smaller maps help to serve the purpose. They're never going to be perfect, but they'll be useful in some way or another.
Thank you. That's all. That's awesome. That's helpful.
This relates a lot to what we're working on in Foundations right now, improving the component life cycle. And I started this new diagram for that. So it's funny that you mentioned that, Becca, but trying to make it like very straightforward and easy to follow. There's a merge request that I linked in the agenda. So Nick and Becca, it'd be really awesome if you took a look and gave some feedback, because we want to make it simple, but same thing as Becca said, like there's just kind of multiple dimensions, and I think it can be probably scaled down and easier to go through, but haven't figured out how to do that yet. So would be interested in your feedback for sure.
Cool. Yeah, excited about that.
Jackie, you had the next point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, GitLab is is kind of a text heavy company. We're always writing things and issues and explaining our ideas. And so I just think maps and diagrams are amazing ways to communicate complexity in a faster way. And also, I mean, just like if you think about data analytics in a chart, like sometimes a chart will show you something so much faster than if someone could just tell you using words and numbers. So I think we have so many opportunities. Anytime we want to like sell an idea, especially to people outside UX, or communicate really quickly what an experience is like, these are super powerful. And then another thing journey maps do is they help us understand different channels. So when we think about an experience like a workflow that is in our UI, it's just in our UI. But that person might be hopping to a terminal. They might be hopping over to some docs in GitLab or some docs Stack Overflow external to GitLab. They might be using all these different channels / tools at once. And a journey map can kind of like condense that so that we can understand how people go from one thing to the next. And then we can learn from that and identify like opportunities to leverage those things to make the experiences better. So I love all of these visual things. I think the strength of any UX and design team is to be able to visualize stuff so that other people can more quickly and easily digest that information and then see the value in it and act on it. Yeah, that's it.
Amen.